All right, pause recording. So good, we are good to go. So far it's just the three of us, and we have Lyra here. Hi, Lyra. Um, everyone, thank you for joining Andy and I today. We are going to talk about how to not suck at blogging in 2016. Now, this is actually a blab that we did a couple of months ago, which was super successful. But naturally, I didn't record it, so we want to make this recording available. So we thought we'd redo it. And of course, the reason that we're talking about this is because blogging has changed so much. Now, Andy, I should introduce you or let you introduce yourself. Why don't you tell us a bit about your business?
Sure. My name's Andy Bush. I'm the owner of Bush Marketing. It's an internet marketing agency located in downtown Toronto, Canada. Excuse me. We focus primarily on marketing strategies for small and medium-sized businesses. Our area of focus is web design, development, and search engine optimization. So this falls, right within our wheelhouse. And happy to be here. This is our third lab, so that's very exciting. Kim, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I run a company called Lyra Communications. We've been around since 2009, and we focus exclusively on social media. So we do strategy, training, and execution. So we manage social media on behalf of small and mid-sized brands, and we really specialize in professional service firms. As part of social media, of course, we work with a lot of blogs, and I find that blogging has really come full circle. When we first started in 2009 and 2010 and even 11, blogging was really all the rage. Everybody was blogging, and it was an interesting time because, the original blogs, I think, were very high quality. And then as blogging caught on as a marketing tactic, blogs became very, very low quality. So you had these sort of 250-word blogs that were popping up a couple times a week on people's feeds, and this is what Google liked at the time, but Google has changed. So, and since then, blogs have really had a slow build to come back to becoming the credible sources of information that now they are. And of course, Andy, as you well know, huge SEO traffic generators as well, provided that they're high quality. So what we're really going to talk about today is about high quality blogging, both in terms of what users and readers want to see, but also in terms of what Google needs to see in order to continue using blogging for SEO. So I think, I'll ask you, Andy, you are the SEO expert. Do you feel that, do you really need a blog these days? Do you still need one the way you used to a couple of years ago for SEO?
I mean, in terms of, excuse me, is it an absolute, I'm going to die without it necessity? No, you could get away without one, but it's profoundly beneficial for a business, small, medium, or large corporation to have a blog, to incorporate dynamic content onto their website, to utilize that valuable fresh content, which Google adores. Google loves fresh content, organic content, well written, as you said, as opposed to what we have looked over those, the past 4 or 5 years, where it's just been sort of just churning out thoughts and getting it's been quantity over quality is essentially what's been happening.
Not even churning out thoughts. I think that's very generous. It's more like churning out keyword stuffed paragraphs that somehow fit together and are supposed to be an article.
So Google, you got to give credit to Google because they work very hard at rewarding authentic businesses for providing authentic content. They do, and they upgrade their algorithms, I guess, fairly regularly. Probably, maybe twice, 3 times a year. They're updating their algorithms to make sure that people who are producing quality content that users actually want to read, they want to share, that's beneficial to people, is what's getting rewarded over these, as you said, keyword stuffed blog posts, short blog posts. For those who aren't sort of that SEO familiar, keywords are essential words that describe what it is that your business does and or sells or products or whatever it is. And essentially nowadays as well, where you do it. So it's essentially it's what and where. So for somebody like me who owns a marketing company, it would be internet marketing Toronto, although I do it on a global scale. It could be web design Toronto. So those are keywords. And basically what we saw some very manipulative tactics in which people were just jamming as many of these terms and words into the content as possible in order to trick Google into thinking, yes, they've mentioned this 20 times in their article. That must be better than the person who mentioned it 19 times. Let's rank them above. So what you essentially received was 250 words worth of nonsense. And Google updated their algorithm a little while ago with an algorithm called Panda. Panda and then Penguin after that, which has done away with that. If you overdo keywords, you'll be penalized as opposed to rewarded. So it's really good.
That's the reason. That's the reason why we do SEO, that we do social media now. When I first started the business in 2009, early 2009, the idea was to have a copywriting business. It wasn't meant to be a social media business. And we very quickly stopped being able to make money doing, a lot of blogging, tons of blogging, and doing social media copy or web copy, because we were pushed out by content houses that were churning out shite copy that just was filled with keywords, and we couldn't compete. We can't charge what they're charging because they're charging nothing. And as you said, Google was rewarding it. And so it's interesting because of that, we ended up going to social media. There was a more profitable business model to be had in the social media world. But it is interesting that now that Google really does reward authentically written, high quality copy, which is the type of copy that most organizations do. And it is nice to see that. But having said that, it really does come down now to quality over quantity. I know when we do think about how often should somebody blog, it used to be about 16 times a month. I have a couple of clients who still will blog 8 times a month. But I also have clients who are blogging once a week and twice a month. And I've been told recently that provided if the blog is long enough and truly high quality, and has good social support, so there's a lot of backlinking to the blog, that you can actually get away with 1 blog a month. And I'm skeptical of that. I don't mind 2 blogs. I know I've worked on successful SEO programs with 2 blogs or word writing, but what do you think? Can you do 1 blog a month for SEO and actually get somewhere with that? Is it enough?
You can if it's constructed well. I mean, when I deal with my clients, I deal with clients of all sizes when it comes to businesses. So it really depends on what their resources are. So if I'll write blog posts for some of my clients, not a lot of them. Generally, I educate them on how to do it themselves. That's generally what they want. They like to do it in-house. So I'll have a seminar or session with them, teaching them how to do it. Once a month is the absolute basement of how much you should do. Once a month is okay for getting content out. It's not ideal, but if someone said to me, I'm only going to commit to 6 per year, once every 2 months, I'd say you may want to revisit this and go look at spending your time and resources somewhere else. It's not going to have a profound SEO benefit.
Provided you're blogging for SEO, though. I mean, there's lots of reasons to blog. It's not always an SEO decision.
Right. But I mean, once a month, generally speaking, once a month is the minimum amount you should do it. Again, it all depends on, to be honest, it depends on the commitment level of the person doing it. Are they going to do it? Consistency in how often you blog is very important as well. So if you post 2 blog posts this month, great. Yeah. And then you don't do any for 3 months, that's not great. It actually it can reflect quite negatively on your brand, and obviously it's going to have it. And again, it's not all about SEO, but it's not going to get you anywhere from an SEO standpoint. You won't reap the benefits of it. If you're going to do a blog post once per month, make sure that the structure of it make sure it's a damn good one. Make sure that you've got the full amount of content that you want. Make sure that it's optimized for SEO purposes as best as humanly possible. We can get into the sort of specifics about what that is in a second. But no, ideally, if you can do, 1 per week is ideal, I think. Anything above that, I think you maybe, I don't think it's necessary to go that much.
You know what, it depends. I mean, I know one of the more successful SEO programs that we've been brought in on. So as Andy well knows, I'll often work with marketing companies to do the social side of an SEO program. is it's a lawyer, and he's blogging only twice a month. But we've been working with him now for over 2 years, every single month. And these are high quality blogs. So, we're averaging, in terms of our word count, we're averaging anywhere between 700 and 800 words every 2 months. I mean, every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And these are good quality topics. The strategy behind it, and I know you do this work too, the strategy behind it is not only what does Google want to see, so we're certainly writing to the keywords that we want to optimize this lawyer for, but we're also writing very specifically what we know that the lawyer's clients want to read.
Right.
And so we put those two things together, and because we've been doing it consistently, so following some of those best practices that you're mentioning, really high quality, very consistent, and more than one a month, so 2 a month. It's fine. I mean, he is outperforming most of his competitors, and I know his competitors are spending, and not that he's doing this for free, but I know that we're not charging what his competitors are probably spending, and it really just comes down to that consistency, right? The strategy and the consistency is so important. But let's talk then about how long a blog should actually be. And Gary Weiss, thanks for joining us. Hello.
Hey, Gary.
So let's talk about what are the new best practices for length?
Best practices for length, you touched on it perfectly. We were seeing these blog posts, and I still see them, unfortunately, that are 250 words. It's just, Google doesn't view it as have you given anybody of anything of substance in 250 words. There's just not enough of value or substance in that word count. So the general rule of thumb is about a 700 word minimum. If you can stay above that, that's great. There was a study done, and I can't quote who, I read it months ago, and it took, I think, the top 1,000 bloggers in the United States and wanted to see what their word count was, and it averaged between 900 and 1,000. So
really?
Yeah, it was great. So these are the top bloggers. These are, some are professional bloggers, some are corporate blogs, but these are well-written blogs, and it fell within that sort of 900 to 1,000 sweet spot. But you can do 700, and that's great. And the thing, for a lot of people, that seems like a bit of a daunting number, particularly if writing isn't. You don't have a writing background, or you're not necessarily comfortable doing it. You mentioned your client, who's a lawyer. Lawyers are professional writers. That's what they're trained to do. They write. So it's it's easier for maybe a lawyer to do something than, somebody who's a professional plumber may not be accustomed to writing on a regular basis.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it is true. A lot of lawyers are fantastic writers. It's such a huge part of their job. Having said that, when it comes to a blog or really any kind of marketing, show me a lawyer, with the exception of Gary Weiss, is with us now, because Gary, I know that you do your own Twitter. But having said that, show me a lawyer who really has time to sit down and to write that copy, particularly when we're dealing with lawyers who work in larger firms, where, rather than working in small firms, they're looking at every 15-minute is a billable increment, right? So I find that lawyers tend to be really great to work with strategy on. And provided they trust you, they're like, for us, they'll be like, okay, Kim, take it. But we work very closely with them because they're good writers and they know their clients so well. They're really good on the strategy side, I find. But again, I think that if you are going to blog, one of the big best practices is to sit down and to write an editorial calendar. And whether it's 3 months or 6 months, a full year, I think that's sometimes a bit much, but 6 months is a nice, bite-sized number. And figure out what you're going to write about. So you think about what the titles are before you actually put pen to paper, or I guess finger to keyboard in this case. And those topics should be based on what your clients or your prospects are going to want to read. So if we're using the example of a lawyer, I don't think it's that effective to be talking about the latest legislation or wins, unless that is super interesting to your clients. What is more interesting, so for example, we work with a personal injury lawyer, is to talk about wheelchair accessible things to do in your city. That's of interest. That's what clients are going to want to read. It's of value to them. And then we marry that up with what keywords is he optimizing for. So personal injury lawyer Toronto, or best personal injury lawyer in Philadelphia. So I think it's really important. A best practice is definitely to have that editorial calendar. And I'm really shocked when you're talking about 800 or 900 to 1,000 words. Okay, in my world, that's a long blog.
It is a long
blog.
blog.
700 to 800. When we hit, and I try not to do this, so it is when I used to, but when I would hit 1,200 words with a blog, I would break the blog into two.
Sure.
And I think that, but then you only have a 600-word blog. Is it worth it to do that? Or given what you're saying, are you better to keep a 1,200-word blog as one?
1,200 words is a lot of words. I mean, if you, one of the practices of best blogging these days is, because 700 words is a lot of words. And the reality is people don't necessarily want to read 700 words in a row. Like if people see a sea of language, they simply don't read like they used to read. So what is critical is, how do we break this up into manageable sections that we can read? So, that's why you see a lot of, I've got a physiotherapist Pilates studio as a client. So we had a discussion about their content strategy, and he loves to write and he has a lot to say about specific topics. And I said, well, try to break up into 4 individual unique parts. So, for your title of your blog, try to have maybe 4, 5, 6 headings. If you have a lot of content, break it up into sections, which can be incredibly valuable. It allows a couple of things to happen. One, it breaks up the content so it doesn't just look like a sea of words, which people can find off-putting these days, because people tend not to read as much as they scan. And on that point of scanning, secondly, it allows them to sort through these little subtopics or subheadings to see the material that they actually want. And when they see what they want, then it becomes valuable to them and it becomes shareable, which is ultimately, you can talk about this for ages, shareability, and you want that exposure. You want that, you want that bit of content spread, particularly in the social media world.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, formatting your blog is important.
Absolutely.
And I work, especially I work with a lot of clients who will write their own blogs and then we're just sharing them. And a lot of those clients, we end up changing the engagement so that my team can at least edit the blogs, because what we're really doing is formatting. Pick a good title. Pick a title that has a hook, and your title shouldn't be too long. And yes, I do think that the old rules apply in that you want to have your keywords in your title, but not with some crazy, crappy keyword stuff title. There should be a good title. And then you're quite right. I think the stat is that we read 30% slower on screen, right? And so you want to break up your blog with headers, which also helps with SEO if you're on a WordPress blog, because you can be doing header 1 is your title, but header 2, header 3, header 4. But really, I know even when I read a blog, I will read, obviously, the title. I will read the first sentence or 2, and generally, too, when we format a blog, the first sentence of the blog should almost be like a retelling of the title. It should be a stand-alone statement that gives a little bit of a promise for what's going to happen in the blog. So, for example, if the blog is, June? So June design trends you don't want to miss.
Right.
Then what would the title be? Something, it would kind of reiterate, these design trends are ones you've never thought of, but oh my God, they're amazing.
June is upon us. What are the current trends? That kind of thing. Exactly.
Yeah, restating it, right? Because when you share that blog, that is what is going to be pulled onto your social media. So under the picture, the thumbnail, that sentence is going to be pulled. So it needs to be just as good as the title. And then after that, you have the headers or the subheads, because most people, before they actually commit to reading the blog, they're going to read the subheads.
That's right.
So ideally, the subhead should also tell a story. And most people aren't going to get to the end of your blog unless they're really love your blog. They're big fans, right? So I think that's something to think about as well, is how you actually format the blog. And the final thing on formatting that I want to bring up, because this can be a big issue. It's been a social media changed last year. Hi, social media changes every 2 hours.
Yeah, it does.
But last year, everything changed with the way they pull pictures. And I'm being intentionally vague because it's all of the feeds. And so one of the challenges we've had with clients that we've been working with for a while is that their blogs didn't necessarily have, like the non-optimized clients, their blogs didn't have great pictures. And so what we're finding now is that it is so critical to have pictures, not just from an SEO standpoint. I mean, if every image is an opportunity to optimize. So obviously it's important for SEO, but when we're not thinking about SEO and we're blogging for different reasons, having a nice high-res image that is actually, it is your feature image that the social media feeds can easily pull is critically important. I have a design client that we work with, and they have really lovely images, and so we're always careful to have very beautiful images. But I noticed that the feature image, I posted a blog last month, and the feature image was the most, oh my God, stunning walk-in closet you've ever seen. And our demographic, my age of women in America, and we're all about design and home decor and home accessories. And I know, we had I had posted this blog before with a different image, and it kind of was okay. It didn't really get a lot of play. I promoted it. It was like, I changed the image, and we put an image of this closet that was to die for. And that one blog drove over 1,000 views to my client's page. So image is everything. If you can intersperse them through the blog, that's great. It's good for SEO, but make sure your feature image is amazing. And if you don't have a lot of money to pay for images, go to Pixabay. That's my favorite for free images. You can go to Creative Commons, provided that you do proper attribution. I think, was it you, Andy? You had another one that you went to, I think that you mentioned in our last lab.
123 is a place where you can get images. That's a simple Google search. It'll take you there. But Pixabay is terrific.
Okay, wait. If I just Google 123 on Google.
123 stock images, it'll be there.
Okay.
I can't remember the full.
It's good.
It's great. Pixabay is really good too.
I like Pixabay.
If you're not sure about, I just wanted to. You mentioned a few really important things that I wanted to touch on really quickly. The first is, if you're not sure about whether or not you should source an image, source an image. So always source your images if you feel you need to.
I see Pixabay sourced all the time, and you don't have to source Pixabay. So when Andy talks about sourcing, it's just talking about writing the attribution, so writing where the image came from, and generally linking to that site. You have to be very, very careful with that. Yeah. I think it makes sense to, if you're a serious blogger, you're blogging for your brand, I think it makes sense to put out the $50 a month and get an account with Fotolia, right? Or it depends on how much money you have. Shutterstock is about 50 or 60 a month for about 5 images. Yeah,
it's about $10 an image at Shutterstock.
That's a good investment.
Yeah,
that's a really good investment.
Well, it's fine if you're producing 2 blog posts per month. It's an additional $20 a month, and you've got those images, and you can repurpose them down the road if you need to. So yeah, it's a good investment.
Yeah.
You also mentioned. I just wanted to touch really quickly. Sorry, Kim. You also mentioned putting in keywords into your title and into your opening page and into your headers, and that's really important as well. There's 2 elements when writing a blog post that we tend to consider and that need to be considered primarily. The first is user experience. Is this a good article? Is it written well for them? Are they going to find it compelling and interesting? And the other aspect...
Are they going to use the will to live because it's so bloody boring and all about your brand?
That's it. And the other one is SEO. And if you had to take those 2 things and rank them in order of importance, SEO comes second to user experience. Good writing should always trump SEO benefits. And this is because we want your brand to shine. We really want your brand to have the best, we want to give the best impression of your brand as humanly possible. And any kind of manipulative SEO tactics, or, people may not know that the writing is SEO oriented, but they may feel that the writing is weird. People don't necessarily know something, but they don't know it in their head, but they may know it in their heart. Something feels weird.
They know it sucks. They know it sucks.
Or they know it's strange. Do you know what I mean? Or they know something's off. So the writing comes first. Incorporate your keywords as best you can in the custom URL for the blog post, in the title, in the headings, in the subheadings, and you should only stay with heading 1 and heading 2 if you can, because that's where Google puts the priority. But don't stuff. Never, ever, ever, ever stuff. Just if it's not organic and natural, skip it and move on to something else. And that's coming from an SEO guy.
Well, yeah, fair enough, right?
Yeah.
I'm just sharing this every couple minutes. So let's talk about, it's always fun to take the negative angle, a little catty, but hey. Let's talk about some of the mistakes that we see, although we have covered off some of this in talking about the best practices. But, okay, to your point, since we're talking about titles, one of the biggest mistakes I see in blogging, so when I get a blog from my client, is having a boring title. There are, what are the five most compelling keywords in the English language? Okay, let me see if I know all 5 of them. Discover, guarantee, health, I'm missing one. Damn, I can't, something, and you. So I think that words like discover, is it adventure? No, I think that's discover. But the point is, we really want to think about the words that we use when we're writing our blog topic, the actual title, because that is going to make or break the success of that title when it's shared across social media. So I would literally Google the 10 most powerful marketing words in the English language. I actually have a video blog that I did like 100 years ago, which was the 5 most powerful words. So I looked at those top 5. And I find that when we use these words, it really does make a difference. Another thing that you can do too, and when we often do this, especially when I'm at a loss, I'm not quite sure which is a better title, is I will take it to my community and I will say to people, okay guys, A or B, what is most compelling? And the feedback I get is amazing. So I think it's really important to be creative with our titles, and just to make sure it's not boring. And I guess it doesn't need to, like, what I find boring, Andy, might be really interesting to you if you are, say, for example, a huge model train enthusiast, and it's something to do with model trains, then you would find that interesting. So know your audience, know your target market, and write titles that are going to be interesting to them, that are going to capture their attention based on whatever it is that they're interested in.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's I've actually seen people put things up like our June, this is a hypothetical, but something similar. Our June 2016 blog post would be the title of their blog post, where it doesn't even incorporate any of the topic into. I mean, and I've seen that with newsletters as well. But it's like, yeah, you want to grab people. What is it that you're giving them? Generally speaking, you're either addressing love or fear. You're addressing their happiness or you're addressing their fears. So it can be something you may want to avoid, or something to improve your something. So generally speaking, you're looking at those 2 aspects of it. That's how we approach it anyway. But you got to grab them. You have to have them with the title.
Okay, and then we talked about having too short. And I want to bring this up again because the idea of length, because I still to this day, I see a ton of blogs, and oftentimes when I am, when we have clients where the clients are blogging, but we're just taking the blogs and sharing them. Again, it's really common to get blog posts that are only about 500 words, and that's problematic. A question I have for you, Andy, that I'm unsure about. If a client gives me a blog and it's, say, 450 or 500 words, right? So they've completely not listened to what I have asked them to do, but that's okay. And I go back to them. Well, there have been times where it's I just post it. If it's 500 and change, I'll post it, even though I tell them the minimum is 600 words, but really the minimum is 700 now. But if it's 600, I'll post it. But if we have a lot of really short blogs, so let's say around 500, can we actually get punished? So is it that Google just ignores us, or will Google actually punish ourselves?
You won't be punished. It's just,
so we're just ignored.
You're not, the reason that the purpose of a blog post is what Google wants to reward are people who are authorities in their field. And they believe that a 700-word minimum, if you're that committed to writing your blog post, if you have if you have something substantial to say, then you are an authority in your field. So when it comes down to, if you're looking at the basics of SEO, what Google wants to take, I do a search for something in Toronto, and then the top 10 rankings come up, the top 10 entries come up. Why are they putting number 1 at number 1 and number 2 at number 2? Because Google's algorithms believe that person who's ranked number one, or that business is ranked number one, is a better fit for that search term. So what that 700 words is doing is telling Google, yes, I'm an authority in my field. I have something substantial to say on a topic. Yeah. Google's determined that 700 words should be the minimum for that. So if you're coming up shy, no, they're certainly not going to punish you. You're just not going to appear on their radar. They just won't necessarily care. You know what I mean? I mean, the internet is massive. We're talking about trillions of websites. So the algorithms have to sort through these things on very sort of rudimentary and mathematical ways. And so looking at something like a 700 word count minimum is important to them.
I have another question for you. This is, again, this used to be best practice, and then it was a worst practice, and now it's a best practice again. I don't even know if it is. Okay. So when we post blogs for our clients and write blogs, one of the things that we try to do is we try to link within the website, right? So we're interlinking blogs within the website. Occasionally, the best practice used to be to do a lot of outward links, right? And then, of course, I work with lots of web builders like you, and the idea is to keep the person on the website as long as humanly possible. Thus, we don't want to have too many outbound links. I have heard them, and I love this, I've heard them referred to as squirrels, because I guess we see the little link and we squirrel off the page. When we're writing a blog, I still, my writers, this is something I have a lot of trouble with. My thing is that I don't want to see any outbound links at all. The only outbound link I ever want to see is very occasionally if we're linking to a larger article, something in the news. But we try to write evergreen content, right? So generally that won't happen. But is it problematic, other than bringing people off your site, which obviously is problematic? But if you have too many outbound links, does Google punish that? Is that a clue for Google, a red flag?
Google likes outbound links, but it's bad form. So I think it's precisely what you said. If you're linking to a source article for some information, excuse me, which can act as a pardon me. Okay, thank you. Which can act as a source article to sort of either where if you're referring to a specific point from an article and you want to make a reference to it, that's great. If you want to give people an opportunity to delve deeper into something, that's fine too. Overloading with outbound links is a terrible idea. You'd never want to distract people from your own content. I'm not terribly concerned with if you have, yes, outbound links are still rewarded by Google. Google likes outbound links to high-ranking sites, but keep it to one or two max.
Yeah.
And because you don't want people distracted. You want people looking at your content. You want them to stay on your site. You can take measures to make sure that people are not leaving your site. So if you put in an outbound link into your content or your copy, you can ensure that actually opens in a new tab or a new window. So it's not actually leading away from your web page to a new web page or your website to a new website, but it pops open in a new tab. That is a great practice, both from a user experience standpoint, because they don't necessarily want to go away from your website, but also from an SEO standpoint. So you're keeping your outbound link, you're not losing the client. They can just close the tab of the other article and there's yours again. That's what I would do.
I got another question. Now I have a bit of a technical question for you, another technical question. And this also has to do with linking. So, and I just actually, to kind of put a bookmark on that issue, I still, to this day, I would prefer to have pretty much no outbound links as much as possible, and to only link to other blogs within my client's website, right? I really want to keep the reader there as long as, on the website, as long as we possibly can. So I try to have no outbound links. But, okay, my question for you, and this has always confounded me. So you mentioned that if we do have an outbound link, we want to make it so that link opens in a new window. Okay, I got that. But when we link within the website, so we link from one Lyra Communications blog to another Lyra Communications blog. If I make that blog to link within a new window, does that count as a bounce? Do you understand what I'm asking? Oh, and I think Andy has frozen on us a little bit, so hopefully we'll come back. So what I was talking to you guys who are watching, I had this issue about a year or two ago where the bounce rates on my client site was very, very high. And it was a huge blog. Like, the man was blogging 14, 16 times a month, big blog, high quality blog. And what we found is that when we were, because we had all the blogs, when we would do the inward linking, we had it set to opening in a new window. And then when we changed that so that if somebody goes from one blog, they just go to another blog within the same browser, our bounce rate was cut in half. So this is something I want to confirm with Andy when we get him back, that is actually something to think about. So, another thing that we had talked about, oh good, I hope he's coming back, is the idea of blogging versus vlogging with a V, right, versus blogging. And I want to bring this up to you because I think it's a really important thing. So I have done both. I blog semi-regularly and I do video blogs regularly as well. And so when clients have asked me, how can I save time on blogging? I don't have time to write. Writing that much makes me lose the will to live. My answer to them is do a video blog. And it can be a little tough to do it initially. You do have to get used to it. But having said that, we've got
some technical stuff, apparently. Anyway, I was speaking a little bit about keyword stuffing, which we touched on a little bit earlier. You have your primary keywords, which is important. You want to make sure that you incorporate them into your blog post, particularly your title and the opening sentence of the first paragraph. And also, if you can incorporate them organically into some of the headings below or the subheadings below, that's good as well. What you want to make sure you don't do is you don't want to overload. Generally speaking, we want to look at somewhere between a 2 and 3% amount. So 2 or 3% of your copy can incorporate keywords. Anything above that, Google may penalize you. Anything below that, it's really not going to have the same sort of SEO impact that you want to have. After that, what else are we looking at? We touched on images, quality images. We need to take those 700 words and we need to break them up. So, I'm just doing a quick check to see where Kim is. I'm not seeing her again. So we've got 700 words, which is a lot of words for somebody to read. I am not.
Hi.
Oh, I think we've got her back. Hello.
Hi. Okay, so that was the weirdest thing because you dropped off, right? And then you came back and you were talking, and I'm like, can you even hear me? And
I was just talking because I thought you were gone, so I was filling some time.
No, you couldn't hear me. So I don't know.
All right, doesn't matter. We're back.
Well, yeah. So what we were talking about actually when we had lost you is I started talking about the idea of video blogging versus blogging. And I think I really love the idea of video blogs for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason from my perspective is because it's such a time saver. And I was going to talk a little bit about how to do it in a way that you can save time. And then, of course, from your perspective, Andy, I know it is absolutely fantabulous for search engine optimization. And I find that when I do video blogs, my video blogs get so much more play, no pun intended, but I get so much more feedback. People comment. I know people who follow my very small YouTube channel that I don't even know about, but I will have clients who say, oh, well, my friend so-and-so follows all of your videos. Shit, really? I had no idea. So I find that they have a much wider reach. And when I started years ago, I hired a company to do them for me. And I think they did a really good job. But what I find now is that I just do them myself. I literally use my iPhone, which is a crappy iPhone 5 at that. And I set it up. I do the video using like Microsoft Office's editing tools, right? They've got like Microsoft Movie Maker. I'm able to edit it. I purchased a royalty-free opening song, right? Or sorry, I purchased the copyright to an opening song.
Which is reasonable.
And that's it. Yeah. You have to. The whole thing takes me about, in all, including uploading it to YouTube, which takes a bit of time, it probably takes about an hour. And it's such, I find it's just a better use of my time as opposed to sitting there and writing. I mean, sometimes if the mood strikes me, I am a writer at heart, I will write a nice 900-word blog on something. But if I can do a video on it, I find it so much more powerful. And when I used to hire the company, I would get them to come in and I would do maybe 8 in a day. We would just boom, do 8, knock them out and be done. And then I had 8 amazing videos that I could use over the course of the next, say, if I'm doing two a month, the next 4 months. I mean, you don't do video, do you, Andy?
I'm about to start.
I was about to ask you what
Yeah.
your thoughts are on that.
Well, my background's in writing as well, so it's a very comfortable place for me. For me to sit down on a Saturday or a Sunday morning and just churn out a 700-word blog post really isn't that big a chore for me. I can actually churn out a few over a 2-hour period if I need to. So it's not that big a deal for me. So I haven't gotten into video. I'm just starting to get into it now. I think it's incredibly important from an SEO standpoint. It's really, really valuable, particularly if you can incorporate it into YouTube and have a YouTube channel. Google owns YouTube. Google loves it when you use their own products. They love it, and they will happily reward you. You're actually seeing more and more Google searches have they're what's called blended search results. So we're actually seeing, instead of just seeing websites as a result, they're starting to incorporate more videos into it, more articles. You'll see, if you do a search for a specific topic, you may see the latest tweets on that. So Google's really going for these sort of blended search results. They really want to see a greater variety come up when you do a search. Video is huge. It has a huge click-to-view rate. So if somebody sees a video, they're far more inclined to click on that and watch it than they would be to click on an article and read it. If you can keep best practices for videos, try to keep them around 90 seconds. You don't want to. Nobody wants a 4-minute video because
I do long videos, and they work.
Do you? Okay.
I know. I can't. I talk too much, man. No matter what I do, I cannot get it down to under 3 minutes. I think I have one video that's under 3 minutes.
2 minutes is fine. Yeah. The ultimate effect, though, is people just start jumping around. Like they start jumping around on the. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what it really comes down to is knowing your market. It's the same thing as blogging. It's knowing your market and knowing giving real value. So one of my most successful videos is a longer video. It's on LinkedIn. When I share that video on LinkedIn, people watch it. They watch it through. They comment on every aspect of that video, so I know that they're watching it through. So it has a very low drop-off rate. And it totally is not that best practice. It's much longer. It's not easy to speak in a minute and a half, right? And I find that, especially, I just think of myself when I'm on YouTube and I am Googling because I want to find something out on YouTube. I do look for a longer video because I want there to be some real meat to it. So if I'm giving, say, 4 things a law firm should do to be successful on social media, I'm going to probably speak about each thing for at least a minute.
Yeah.
And provided it's good, valuable information. And my goal is I picture the reader there taking notes because I want them to be successful, right? So I'm giving them the information they need to be successful in this area. So under those circumstances, I'm okay to go over that time limit because I don't need to appeal to everybody. I only need to appeal to my target demographic. So if I'm trying to work with more lawyers or I'm trying to work with more usability people, I'm going to spin my video to making sure that the information I'm giving is super relevant to them. So why wouldn't they watch a 4 or 5 minute video?
Well, I think
right?
You nailed it when you said it's target demographic specific. It's industry specific. So I mentioned earlier, I've got a client who owns a Pilates studio. So he's doing 90-second, 60 to 90-second videos, cranking them out of, how you can get 30 seconds worth of, or how you can get, 2 minutes of exercise in the middle of a work day. Do this, have a great day. And that 90-second model works for him because these become social media posts for him. He's, posting them everywhere he can. So in terms of, he's not necessarily getting that sort of long commitment that you would. You're looking at professional people, I think, who are interested in growing their marketing in a deeper and very substantial way. They'll take the time to become actually educated. So are we talking about becoming educated, or are we talking about a tip? And I think those are entirely different scenarios. Generally speaking, there's that 90 seconds tends to be a sweet spot for just churning out a quick bit of information. But I think if you're taking the time to educate your clients, I think that's fantastic, particularly if you're getting a positive reaction.
I do. My videos have become a huge part of my business development, and more so than I had ever intended them to be. I intended that I would make the videos just like I blog, and I would be going out and actually pounding the pavement meeting people, and then they would talk to me about whatever issue they're having. I'd say, hey, I have a video I have done about that, or I've written a blog about that. Let me send you the link when I get back to the office. So this is kind of old school, right?
Yeah.
But what I have found is that now it works quite differently. So what I'm finding is that people are finding me because of the videos. When I did the legal conference over the weekend in New York City, or I guess last weekend in New York City, they found me because of my videos on how to work with law firms, or how to do social media with law firms. So they can be effective. But while we're talking about videos, it's interesting because we talk about traditional blogs and how they have to be so long, right? They have to be 700, 800, 900 words. But having said that, videos, I do my videos a certain way. They work for me. But I know the best practice for videos, exactly what you're saying, 90 seconds, right? Having said that, though, I think that if you are going to do videos, you also want to think of them in 10-second increments so that you can slice and dice them, and you can be sharing them onto Twitter and onto Instagram. Yeah, that's a huge thing. So that can be, if you're really good at sound bites, I can be good at them if I really practice. Otherwise, I kind of suck at them. Andy, in knowing you pretty well at this point, I think you're probably really good at them. But if you're going to do Instagram video, get really good at sound bites. You got to speak like a politician, right?
Yeah, find yourself a sort of a money sentence, slot it in the middle somewhere, and give yourself a little half-second pause before and after, and then you'll be in business. So if it's the same thing as public speaking. If you want to have an impact on something, you give it a little pause, hit them with a hard sentence or a message, and then pause it, tiny little pause again, then get back into it. So you can incorporate that into your video, then you can slice and dice it out. You've got your Instagram video, and you're in great shape. Yeah, absolutely.
So basically what you're saying is something, oh, we just lost Andy again, which probably means we're going to lose me too. We're talking about blogging versus blogging and recycling this content. One of the things that I want to bring up, which is a huge deal when you're blogging, is this idea of recycling content. This is another way not to suck. Generally, if we're going to suck on blogging, we suck because it's so much work. It's so much time, right? So one thing that we can do is recycle content. So what that looks like is, imagine you write a blog post. So the blog post is fantastic. It's a good 800 words. You post it, you're getting good play. And because you have, in effect, researched this blog or this post, you're going to, we've got him coming back. Is he coming back?
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay, good. I'm talking about recycling content.
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, good. Yeah. So the idea about recycling content, which saves a ginormous time, is that you post a blog. The blog is good. Now you put your heart and soul into writing this blog and to researching this blog. My thought is take that blog and turn that blog into a script for a video, right? Do your video. You can now upload that video onto your blog, right? Upload it to YouTube, share it onto your blog, share it onto your social media, share it everywhere under the sun. If you have spoken in the sound bites that Andy had mentioned before, then take that video and splice and dice it and make shorter, quicker videos that then you can share onto other social media feeds like Instagram and like Vine, right?
Yeah.
So at this point, you'll be very comfortable speaking about your topic. So why not be someone's guest on a podcast? Or if you do podcasts, actually have your own podcast about it. Why not, from every video or every blog that you write, you can be writing 20 tweets about it. You can be writing 5 Facebook posts, just taking different angles out of that information and using it to generate the rest of your social media content. I mean, it's the big circle of content. If you have a lot of blogs and some videos that do really well, but you have a lot of blogs, write them in a series. So maybe write a series of 3 blogs, social media for law firms. Once you have those 3 blogs, you can take those 3 blogs and turn them into a white paper.
That's it.
1 or 2 white papers, 2 or 3 white papers makes a really lovely ebook.
Yep.
Right? If you've got a couple of ebooks, send them to a publisher and see if they would actually bring you on to publish a proper book. Or use them to create a keynote address if you're speaking, because I know so many entrepreneurs speak these days. And all of this content has come from one thing, from maybe 2 hours of your research. You can generate all this content. And so I find that when if you're recycling your content, you should never be stuck for what to write about or what to do. Because if you just look at the blogs you have, you look at the information that's already on your website, you look at the stuff you've done in the past, recycle them. And the beauty of it is that every person who consumes your content along, from all of these different medias, they're all different people. Whomever it is that watches your YouTube video is not going to be the same person who reads your blog. It's probably not going to be the same person who was on your email distribution list.
That's right.
These are all different audiences, right? Your Instagram audience is different from your Twitter audience. So what you're in effect doing is using the same content or content that's based on the same content and using it to reach out to all of these different demographics. And I think it saves so much time. It saves so much stress. It really enhances the ROI of each individual piece of content. I think it's golden.
I mean, 1,000 times yes. At one point during, I think it was our first blab, you used the expression "no content left behind," which has become one of my favorites, and I use it constantly. I've stolen it from you, and I use it constantly.
Don't steal it from me.
I'm not going to. I may credit you. But it's amazing how, if you look at it this way, just from a strategic standpoint, a simple question from a client can turn into so much. Like a client has a question for you about something. That's an ideal example, because if a client has a question about something or somebody wants advice on something, that's generally speaking, that's probably something that other people want as well. So that's a source for an idea for a blog post. Then you can convert that into so much more. In order to be successful in doing this, though, and Kim, I know you're totally on board with this, you have to have a strategy and you need to be organized. If you want to be effective in taking a single piece of content and distributing on multiple platforms in multiple different ways, you have to be organized. So you want to make a list of your different platforms. You want to make a strategy of how you can take that idea, convert it into, this incredible almost campaign among multi-platform campaign. So I think that's a fantastic idea. I do see clients, they labor over a blog post. They put it up on their website, the blog that's integrated into the website, and they sit and they watch, and nobody comes, and they don't understand why, and they think the whole thing's pointless. And that in itself is relatively pointless. If you don't have an audience, a built-in audience or an established audience, and you're just putting it up there and expecting it to get traffic, it's not going to. You got to get out there. You got to tell everybody that it's happening. And if you can convert it to multiple different platforms like video, or make it a topic in a podcast, or whatever you want to do, you should absolutely do it.
You're right. So that means you write a blog post, you share it a gazillion times onto Twitter. Not all at once, mind you. You take a gazillion posts and you spread it out over the course of the next 4 months. You share it onto your Facebook, you share it onto your LinkedIn. And, if you're writing what we call evergreen topics, these are topics that never go, they're not timely. So an evergreen topic may be, how to design for a small space, as opposed to June trends.
That's right.
June trends can only really be shared in the month of June of that year. So you have a shelf life to that piece of content. Make sure your blog is written about things that are not quite as timely. So always relevant. So, a good topic would be good topics to write about. That should be a blog post in itself.
Sure.
Annie, I love that you mentioned that when a client asks a question, blog about that. That's how a lot of my blogs come together. So I have my strategy, but when I get inspired to actually write a blog, so my strategy is the videos that you see. But the blogs that I write, 90% of them are because a client has said, Kim, whatever,
I'm so frustrated.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, if my client has asked me that, I know all these other people are thinking that it's a great thing. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is absolutely I don't know if it's a best practice, but I certainly operate on that as well. If a client asks me a question and it kind of inspires me to write, that's what I'll write about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, what else was I talking about? I just lost my train of thought. Jump in.
That's okay. Me. I thought I was doing the talking. But yeah, no, it's, we were talking about taking a piece of content or a concept and sort of maximizing the effectiveness of it. So yeah, I think, it really is amazing how much you can accomplish with just a simple question or a simple idea.
Yeah, I think so.
And you're very good at that, Kim. You're excellent at it. I've seen you do it.
Oh, thank you so much. What I was going to mention is that you had talked about you can't just basically blog and then leave your blog post on your site and then think that, it's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, he will come.
Right. They won't.
Generally, no, they won't. So what that means is that when you write your blog, you want to share it on every single social media field that you have or social media network that you have. And the evergreen topics allow you to share it in every single social media network that you have month after month. So if one blog you should be able to share regularly for upwards of a year before that blog goes out of style or becomes completely irrelevant or maybe no longer meets Google's best practices. So I want to put that out there because that's something that also saves a hell of a lot of time when we're blogging.
Yeah. You want to avoid, when it comes to evergreen topics, you want to avoid two major things. You want to avoid dates. Yeah. You want to avoid pop culture. You do not want to I don't want to do 5 things I learned from Donald Trump's presidential campaign that can help me in marketing, because 7 years from now, that's going to have no value. 3 years from now, it's not going to have any value.
Yeah, I actually think that would be okay, because I think you could feasibly share that for a year or two. I think that would have a shelf life of at least a year,
It's not, it may not have an SEO shelf life. So you know what I mean? Is an article that comes up as a Google search, it's not going to benefit. Like it's as a blog post itself, which also can appear, something like you mentioned, which is the reason you're seeing so much traction with this social media for lawyers is because it's got an absolutely amazing title. How to do social media for law firms. Was that what it was?
Was
that the title?
I follow my best practices. I have articles, blog posts, as well as videos. And I've done a blab as well with Gary Weiss's team on that too. So I mean,
right. So you make it you're going to probably get a high ranking on Google for social media for law firms or social media for lawyers. So that's amazing. It's also timeless. It will be there consistently. So awesome, fantastic. Yeah. So evergreen topics. Don't date yourself and don't get bogged down in the quagmire of pop culture.
And one thing too, that just so there's no confusion, it's interesting because one of the things that I actually hate, and I could be on the best blog site in the world, and if they don't do this, it just pisses me off. And so you mentioned not using dates. So I think what you're talking about is not referring to dates in the copy.
The date in the title.
Dates it. Yeah, but having said that, definitely have a date on when that blog post is published. I hate when brands don't date their blog posts. Because I want to know how old something is. So if I see something was published in 2015, I may still read it if it's a good enough topic, right? Mm-hmm. But having said that, I want to know that it's a year old because I'm often specifically searching for very new blogs, right?
That's right.
So if I'm searching, social media, like the new Twitter algorithm or Twitter algorithm together, I have to search 2016. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I will search nothing older than, say, a month back. But I get really irritated when I get onto blog sites that they haven't included their publishing date. So that's one thing. I actually had a client like that, and the web guy I was working with, for some unknown reason to me, took off the publishing date. Yeah. And when I noticed it, I was a bit pissed off. I was like, no, these have to go back because people want to know. I want to know how old something is. And then I can decide if it's still relevant or not. But I kind of find it's a little shady sometimes not to.
Yeah, you have to. So if you're using like a WordPress blog, for example, you have to actively go in and remove that date as a practice. They automatically have it, generally speaking, have it dated. So yeah, you should absolutely do that. And you know what? If you've written a blog post on something that changes a lot, social media changes a lot, technology changes a lot. So, if you're looking for how to set up something on your iPhone and it's a video for an iPhone 2, it may not benefit you now. It's an antiquated thing.
An iPhone 2? Well, I don't even remember what they look like.
I don't have it. It starts with a crank. The what it is, take that opportunity of an older blog post, revisit it and update it. Write a new blog post based on that antiquated blog post as well. So that's another source of content.
You know what? Thank you. That's a brilliant idea because I literally was going through my blog 2 days ago and I'm looking at these blogs that I wrote back in 2010 and 2011 and they're good, but they're so old. Even though they're so relevant, they're too old.
Right.
That was a really wonderful idea to rewrite them. They're too short as well, so I would never share them. These are like 400-word blogs because it was back in the day, right, when we wrote shorter. So I love that idea. I'm going to do that. I have one on key messaging that I love to write about, and how important key messaging is in social media is super relevant, continues to be relevant. I'm going to do that, Andy Bush. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey,
It's consistent with what I had talked about in terms of recycling content.
Absolutely. One of the great misconceptions for people who write blogs is that they don't know what to write about. There is such a wealth of ideas and resources out there. Answer your client questions. See what your competitors are doing on their blogs. Recycle your old blogs. I mean, it's an endless wealth of material. It's such a wonderful opportunity to display authority, to get a higher ranking for your website. It's terrific. So yeah,
well,
by all means.
I think that's probably the perfect place to end this.
It's been good.
Yeah. Andy, thank you so much for making yourself available, and you're such a great wealth of information on this. I love working with you. I love doing these labs with you.
As do I.
Thank you. So if anyone has any questions on website build, SEO, marketing strategy, Andy, you are at bushmarketing.ca. Of course, we can see your name above. And what's your actual website?
My actual website URL is bushmarketing.ca.
Okay. And I am Lyra
nice
Communications. Yeah, Lyra Communications, oneword.com. And you can find me on Twitter at Lyracom. I'm pretty darn active, so definitely reach out to me and I'll get back to you within an hour or so. Okay, any last thoughts, Andy?
No, in November, there's going to be a movie coming out called Downsizing that both Kim and I decided we starred in this past week. Kim and I signed up to be extras on a movie, and we actually got some pretty decent exposure. We may be in a Matt Damon movie, so we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, we were a married couple in the movie. We are not a couple in real life.
No.
And it was great. I was declined by Alexander Payne, so I almost was discovered, and then he was just literally a nod of the head, and they marched me back to the holding area. But that was fun. Seeing Matt Damon up close, ladies and gentlemen, he's as hot up close as he is in the movies.
Yeah, we had fun. It was good.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
good
Andy.
to see you, Kim.
You too. Have a great day.
You too. Thanks, everybody, for coming out.
Bye.
Bye.